Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. I figured we should go live, um, sort of talk about, once again, what's going on in the Cryptoverse. Things are playing out how we've, a likely scenario that we've discussed for a long time. So, seems prudent to remain somewhat on top of it. Let me just post this so people know I'm actually live. All right. All right, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. You guys know the drill. Bitcoin continues to push lower, which again isn't that surprising given the indicators that we discussed. The current low, for those that are curious, is now 16,501 and 3 cents to be exact, right? Might as well be technically correct. So 16,501 and 3 cents. I mean, these are sort of getting into some of those prices that we discussed before. Still, even at these prices, you're still going to have some indicators that are stubborn and will not have even triggered at this price. Even though I'm not saying it's not a fairly attractive price long term, but there still are going to be some indicators that were built out of a secular bull market with low interest rates that still will not have triggered despite this move. So keep that in mind. And we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks and what are the implications on the cryptoverse. But for now, I think it's still worthwhile just to follow what's happening in real time, see kind of where the dust settles, and then try to make sense of that. Because if you try to come out with a ton of don't be a hero, right? Like there's no reason to try to be a hero bottom calling in 2022, and I've said that before throughout the entire year, right? I've said the people that try to be a hero calling the bottom throughout this year are likely just going to be humbled because bear markets have a way of just simply rewarding those who are patient and wrecking those that are not, right? And it's again it's something to consider. Someone says Ethereum looks stronger than Bitcoin. Let's see. So the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio is at 0.07. So, I mean, it has dropped some from this level here. So it's down about 11% over the last day or so. I guess you could argue that it's up some in the last hour, which I suppose is what he's talking about. Ethereum right now is at 1165. So it's actually coming into these prior lows down here. And as we discussed before, it's just simply a rejection off of the 200-day moving average, right? A nice clean rejection, the same thing that we saw back in March and April, just at a lower price, right? Like this one over here was at about 3,500, the rejection. This one was about 16 to 1,700, so about half the price, same rejection, right? Half the price, same rejection level in terms of the 200-day moving average. Furthermore, it was also lining up with the rejection off of our trusty bull market support band, or bear market resistance band if you prefer. And of course, on the week, Ethereum is down about 25%. On this current week, let's go see what Bitcoin is down. It's about 20%. So Ethereum, all things considered, I mean, it's not dropping as hard as I thought it might, but I've also seen in prior bear markets where the most destructive losses on the Ether USD pair and the Ether Bitcoin pair come at the end of the bear market. So I know a lot of people have been really skeptical about my refusal to buy altcoins in 2022, but so far, I don't think that advice has been non-financial advice, but I don't think it's been misguided. And I'm just telling you from my own experience, the majority of the drop usually happens with Ethereum at the very end. So people will say, oh, it's holding on well, it's holding on well, it's holding on well. and then right at the very end they can no longer say it, but then at that point it's too late, right? Like it's too late, and then of course it takes a while to build back up steam for the next bull market. So don't fall into that trap. I have fallen into that trap many times, and it's not fun. So do consider that as a possibility if you're in the camp of saying it's holding up relatively well. Yes, all things considered, I'm surprised it's still this high, but it has come down pretty quickly. I mean, it was at 0.079 just like a week or two ago. So now it's at 0.07. And I believe we actually wicked down already to 0.066. So, I mean, it is sort of giving off some warnings here. We'll see how the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation continues to unfold. In other news, Solana is down, what, 40% on the day? 40% on the day. During the live stream yesterday, I said you should assume that these altcoins can drop 95% minimum. And you can see that now Solana has in fact dropped 95%. Hell, ADA dropped 98% last cycle. And I still bought it, right? I still bought it in 2019, even though it had dropped 98%. Solana's down 95% from the all-time high. I just said yesterday, look for that $13 level on a potential 95% drop. If we get a 98% drop, which is what ADA did last cycle, you're looking at a $5 Solana. $5 SOL. So these are, it's so difficult to pick bottoms on the altcoins. So again, as I've said before, right, like don't be a hero. If you've been YOLOing into altcoins this year, it obviously hasn't worked out. But I want to be clear about something. As we get into 2023, like I'm not just going to continue the cold shower narrative forever. So I do want you guys to consider that. I wanted people to be aware of it this year to try to minimize their losses and sort of just save some cash. But I'm not going to just say that forever. I mean, at some point, I think the bears generally are kind of satisfied with the drawdown in the overall market, and they're sort of willing to concede that, all right, maybe it can start to show some strength again. But you're still looking at this capitulation play out, and to be completely honest, I mean, it feels like deja vu. Right. I mean, it feels like deja vu. I put out a video just about a week ago calling for this Bitcoin capitulation in November, right? We said, look, I mean, it's the same damn thing that we saw in 2018. A bottom in June. Everyone thinks it's the bottom. People make videos calling it's the bottom. They cherry pick indicators to suggest it's the bottom, but it's not the bottom. And I thought this was the bottom in 2018, right? But I'd like to think I learned from my mistakes and have been a better investor this cycle than I was last cycle, and a better one than the cycle before that. So it is sort of the same thing here, at least so far. There's no clear sign that it's any different. No clear sign yet that it's any different. Doesn't mean it has to play out the same way, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't either, right? Like, history can often rhyme. Okay, it's not going to be the exact same thing, but it can often rhyme. And one thing that I told you guys in 2020, in early 2022, and even in 2021, and I stand by this, is that, and maybe now I'm starting to sort of change my tune on it, but I'm getting there, right? Give me some time. But one of the things I said a year ago was that if you joined crypto in 2021, you simply do not know what a cheap altcoin is, right? Like you might think you know what a cheap altcoin is because it's down 80%. But as I've said, just because an altcoin goes down 80% does not mean it can't go down another 80%. So this is where you find that out. And therefore, we're starting to get to the phase, right? It's a slow process, but we're starting to get to the phase where 2021, or the class of 2021 for crypto investors, they're now starting to realize what is a cheap altcoin, right? Is it 50% down from the all-time high? No, right? It's like 95% down. It's 98% down. from the all-time high. That's when you can actually start to talk, at least begin the conversation as to, what is a cheap altcoin. Remember, if the altcoins can go up 100x in a bull market, they sure as hell can give most of it back in a bear. This is an important lesson you have to remember. You just simply have to remember it. Every single cycle, people fall for the same thing. But you have to remember that these coins, if they can go up quickly, they can give the gains back just as quickly as they got them. So some other coins, Avalanche is also putting in new lows. It does seem like a majority of the altcoins are finally starting to put in new lows. ADA hasn't, it put in a low just a couple weeks ago, but it is in real danger of continuing this path. And I would say that is the path, in fact, of least resistance. Litecoin has not yet put in a lower low compared to June, but I think it's highly likely that it's going to. Highly likely that Litecoin will be putting in a lower low in the not so distant future. The Solana Bitcoin pair, look at this. I've had these trend lines drawn forever on this chart. I was starting to wonder when it was ever going to break down to the bottom of the trend line. And here it is, right? Maybe if I can line this wick up a little bit better. So I'm just trying to line it up like perfectly. So you can see the bottom of this trend line on the Sol Bitcoin pair. It's been tagging this trend line for a long time. If it wants to tag it again, it needs to go down to less than 7,000 Satoshis. So if it goes down to less than 7,000 Satoshis, maybe it'll tag it once again. There's also, there's nothing stopping it necessarily from just going all further down, but this is certainly a chart that you can see it's playing out more or less how you might expect it. If anything, it's playing out quicker than I thought it would once it started going down. It held these levels a lot longer than I thought it would, but now it's giving it all back incredibly quickly, and it's now put in a new low on its Bitcoin pair. ADA Bitcoin has actually been sort of trending up recently, but it does seem like it's just in some type of like a bear flag, and the path of least resistance will ultimately be to break down. The truth is that a lot of altcoins against their Bitcoin pairs won't likely bottom until about half a year, like 6 to 10 months or so after Bitcoin bottoms against the US dollar. So I'll say that again. The truth of the matter for altcoins is that their Bitcoin pair will likely not bottom until 6 to 10 months after Bitcoin bottoms against the US dollar. That is the truth, right? That is the most likely scenario, I think, because what happens, and you should be starting to feel this at this point. If you haven't, it kind of scares me because it probably means we have more pain to come. But you should start feeling this at this point, that this market, it will require Bitcoin to be strong again before we're actually going to see a real move to the upside. So when Bitcoin bounces, if altcoins just steal the show, I know a lot of people get excited. They start talking about altcoin season. But for me, it's just frustrating because I'm like, well, damn, we have to go down again because people still haven't learned their lesson. And it's just a matter of time, right? It's just simply a matter of time before everyone has learned their lesson. The last bull will capitulate, and then we can start a new cycle. Okay, it's just a matter of time. But we've been talking about this for quite a long period of time, and I want people to see it through. I feel like if you've gone through this cycle, I really do feel like you owe it to yourself to see it through. Like don't throw in the towel. If you've been stacking cash this year, I think that's great. I think that was the best strategy as opposed to buying anything else. I know there have been speculations that you should be hedging in other places, and to some degree that's true. There are some sectors that have done much better than others. Energy has done pretty well. Precious metals haven't. Honestly, gold is down a lot this year. If you think about it, from where gold was, let's say back in March, gold is down itself 17, 18%. So you might say, well, by holding cash, you're losing value to inflation. But what is the alternative, right? Like what's the alternative? You put it in a risk asset and lose 90% to inflation. If you put it in a non-risk asset like gold, which I do have a small gold position for full disclosure, but if you put it in in something like gold, which is historically considered not a risk asset, you still lost. You still would have just been better off keeping it in cash, right? You still would have been better off keeping it in cash because yes, inflation sucks, but it's better than losing 95% on a risk asset. That's the point, right? That's the point that I've been trying to make for quite a long period of time. I do think precious metals will probably do well once the dollar is done rallying. So there is a case to be made for that potential outcome, and maybe you could make the case that gold has bottomed here. I mean, looks like maybe a triple bottom. I don't really know. I'm not an expert on the gold market. I might make videos on it every once a year, but I'm certainly not an expert on the gold market. But I imagine that once the dollar finally starts to slow down, you'll see gold and silver move back up to the upside. It just simply hasn't happened yet, but it's likely only a matter of time. Bitcoin right now is coming in at 16,784. So again, the new low on Bitcoin is 16,470. So about $300 below the current price. And a lot of the altcoins are down quite a bit today. Matic is also down about 19%, so it's gotten hit pretty hard today, down to 83 cents. So it's giving back a lot of the gains that it had over the last week. Basically, it just went up and then came straight back down. For Matic to put in a new low, it would have to go down a lot further. And I'm not as convinced that Matic has to put in a new low. I think there's surely there's a good chance that it happens, depending on how bad the market gets. But sometimes you will have a few altcoins that remain somewhat strong. Link was a great example back in 2018, where it actually did not put in a lower low during that capitulation by Bitcoin at the end of the year, right? So like it put in a low in June, it blasted off. So this is the Link USD. It blasted off to the tune of 300%, and then it came back down and put in a slightly higher low. So if you go look at Matic, and we take a look at what it did, from this low here, it blasted off and also went up about 300%, right? So it also, like Link, went up 300%. So if you see Matic drop back down to say, like the 30 to 40 cent range, perhaps you're looking at something like that repeating. No promises, no guarantees. The altcoin market is very difficult to navigate, especially when you're sort of in the middle of a Bitcoin bear market. You don't really know exactly where the bottom is, but it is rather difficult to navigate regardless. But again, Bitcoin is still struggling here. And again, if you look at final capitulation over here back in 2018, if we measure out the amount of weeks that it took, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. So it took 5 weeks once final capitulation started. There's no guarantee it plays out the same way. It might not last as long. It might last a lot longer. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you a reference point. In 2018, that capitulation lasted about 5 weeks. The second week was the hardest, though. The second week is where it went down the most, and it went down 29%. The first week, it went down about 13% or so. We're already down 20% this week, so it's clearly not playing out the exact same way, unless this just ends up being a wick like it was over here and it closes just a bit higher. But again, it played out over 5 weeks. If you go to the cycle before, where if you want to argue this is where the final capitulation began, you can see, and maybe I should just measure it out here. It took 9 weeks before it was over. So you have one example where it took 5 weeks, starting from maybe we should take it from right here, I guess. 5 weeks. One where it took 9 weeks. We're currently looking at the first week. So I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but based on the charts, there does remain some danger of still trying to call the bottom even today, because what happens if we get a hot CPI report tomorrow, which I bet half of you guys have forgotten about. What happens if we get a hot inflation report tomorrow and the traditional market, traditional financial markets like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones, what if they come under pressure? And then you're going to have an FOMC meeting. The next FOMC meeting is in December. There's a case to be made that could mark a significant bottom for the crypto asset class. We have seen risk assets drop a lot. If you think back to like June into that FOMC when people started to really realize that the Fed was finally serious. So maybe you'll see something like that play out again, where it drops. And actually, if you look where Bitcoin bottomed over here in 2018, it actually bottomed on like I think it was like December 17th or something like that, if I remember. December 15th. Okay, so we bottomed December 15th. We peaked December 17th. That's right. So we bottomed December 15th. So it was basically a year later, which we're already at that point as measured from the all-time high. But it took us a lot longer to actually see this final move to the downside. But if it were to take place over that same amount of time, December 15th, I believe December 15th is, let me check here. Look at this, guys. Look at the next meeting for the Fed. It's December 14th. Okay. I don't know, right? Like I'm not saying, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying it has to actually go on that long, but there is a risk to that, and maybe it would come with something absurd like the Fed raising interest rates another 75 basis points or 100 basis points or something crazy, like if inflation comes in really hot. I don't really think it's absurd, by the way. I mean, I think they need to do it because inflation is somewhat entrenched at this point and they need to get it out of the system. But you could be looking at a somewhat similar scenario where, we sort of fell over here into that FOMC meeting, I believe, in June. Let me check. Let me get that exact date for you. So yeah, the FOMC, pull it over here. FOMC in June was June 14th to the 15th. And you'll notice that Bitcoin hit a major bottom, a local bottom on June 18th. So about 4 days later. The next FOMC is December 14th. So December 14th. So these are things that I think are worthwhile to follow because a lot of times the market, I think crypto really kind of gets ahead of a lot of these moves. And, if you think about it, like equities continued to drop for months after Bitcoin hit the local bottom in June. So you could see Bitcoin and crypto hit a major bottom, potentially months before the S&P hits a bottom. Okay. But these things take time to play out. Another reason why these events that we're seeing unfold right now take a while to play out is because you don't know who all's affected. If you think about what happened with Celsius and what happened with Luna, like it took weeks and weeks to figure out who all that affected and who was insolvent and who was not. It affected a lot of people. There's got to be a chance here that what happens with what's going on right now, there's a good chance it's going to affect some companies and institutions that we're not even talking about yet, right? Like that you might see they could be the talk of the day next week, but no one's talking about them right now. So these things take a while to play out, right? You can't, patience is ultimately required for these things, in my opinion. So do consider that. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully you guys are doing well. Make sure you subscribe. If you're not subscribed, give the video a thumbs up. And remember, we do have the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. You can find a link to that down in the description below. I'll also put it in the chat if you want to check it out. Yeah, so Ethereum... Guys, I will say this again. The moves are likely going to get increasingly violent. Okay? The further you get along in the bear, the more violent the moves become, typically speaking. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. Again, we've talked about this before with Ethereum. Ultimately, I think it's headed home. I don't know how long it's going to take it to get there, but I've been talking about this all year, and every time I make a video on Ethereum, I'm pretty bearish because I think simply we are heading home. And I don't know like the exact timeline on how long it takes to get home, but that is where I think we are heading. Um, this is sort of where Ethereum touches base every time it goes through a bull market, right? You touch base at your house, and then you go out for a vacation for a while. Then you come back, you touch base, you go out for a vacation. You come back, you touch base for a long time. Maybe you took a mini vacation, maybe it's like a staycation, or you flirt with going somewhere, but you don't actually go anywhere, and then you come right back. And then you take another trip out, and then you eventually come back home. So I do think Ethereum is on its way home. Again, I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, if Ethereum gets down to $800 and then bounces back up for a couple months, then again you kick the can down the road. The longer it takes, the higher the regression band will go, right? So the longer it takes, the higher the regression band goes. We haven't hit it yet, okay? We just simply have not hit it yet. I don't control it. I'm just telling you what it is. I don't control what it is. It just is what it is. Uh, but I think there's a good chance we're going to be heading home in the not so distant future. Bitcoin right now is at 16,734. We got over 8,000 people watching and only 1.2 thousand likes. I think we should easily get that up to 4,000 likes. I'll see some thumbs up if you guys enjoy the content. Remember, we don't even run AdSense here. No affiliate links, no paid promotions. Why do you look, I mean, the whole thing with the affiliate links with all this stuff, look what happened to them all, right? Or look, not all of them, but look what happened to a lot of them, right? A lot of these companies that have all these things and that are getting everyone to shill it. I mean, what has it gotten them in the end of the day? Yeah, you have to be careful, right? I mean, I'm not saying it like just because I don't do it doesn't mean I think that no one should do it. I just think that you have to be careful. You really have to be careful with that type of stuff because it can all seem like a good thing in a bull market, but in a bear market, the pitchforks come out, right? And the pitchforks will come out very quickly. Doing that type of stuff. So you have to be careful. Again, I'm not saying it's no one should do it. I do understand like there is a use case for it, but you have to be careful about what you say and what you do, and you need to make sure that if you are promoting something, I would argue you need to fully understand its business model, because if you don't understand its business model, I mean, if places are lending out their native token as collateral and leverage out of their ears during historically low interest rates, what happens when that phase comes to an end? The crypto market right now is being constricted by the Federal Reserve and higher interest rates. This is not a fluke, right? I mean, you could argue that had this sort of thing going down with FTX recently, had that not occurred, I know some people are saying that this would not have happened, but my point all along has been that it doesn't matter. The Fed is raising interest rates. It's just a matter of time before you figure out, before the market sniffs out, who are the weakest links. And once it sniffs it out, it goes after them as quickly as it can. And it just sort of chews them up and spits them out of the cryptoverse. And they're sort of like a relic of a prior cycle. So as long as the Fed raises rates, it's going to continue to put pressure on a lot of these companies. And only the strongest will survive. Only the strongest will survive this bear market. The ones who were responsible. And I will say this, if you're curious about, I mean, first of all, you should always be skeptical when it comes to centralized platforms. But we all know that everyone basically uses them at some point or another. If you're curious, this type of bear market can help show you which ones are the legitimate ones, right? I mean, again, you need to be careful either way, but bear markets like this one can at least open your eyes as to, okay, which companies are actually legitimate and have a good business model that is sustainable no matter what happens to the economy or, given reasonable conditions, and which ones are not. operating in a sound way. So, but anyways, all right, Bitcoin's at 16,859. So it's a little off its low right now, providing a little bit of breathing room, right? I swear it feels like deja vu, my friends. It feels like 2018 all over again. It just simply feels like deja vu. And again, back then it took 5 weeks to play out. Will it play out in a week this time? Will it take 9 weeks? I don't know. In 2018 it took 5. In 2014 it took 9. So far, you could argue this is the first week of this sort of capitulation right here, right? Like the first week. So one of the things I'm seeing in the chat about altcoins, remember this. There are a lot of altcoins that will not hit new all-time highs. So stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Look, guys, a lot of people hate my negativity and hate it. It's not negativity. Like it's just being real. Like it's just being a realist. Like I'm being realistic based on what I've seen in the past. I have lived on the hopium Kool-Aid that people can serve up for altcoins, calling for new all-time highs in more than one cycle. There are a lot of altcoins that are done. I mean, they are just done and they're never coming back. A lot of them. More so this time than last time, probably, because interest rates are actually going up and they're likely going to stay high for a while. So there's there's a lot of crypto companies now that are likely likely never going to recover. So when you're picking out which altcoins you want to invest in, make sure you understand why you're picking them. I think there are a few good projects. I do. I really do. I think there are a few good projects. I talked about some of them back in 2018. I think there's a few good projects, but most of them are, again, they're going to get chewed up and spit out by the Cryptoverse. And yeah, you're going to have some bear market rallies along the way where everyone's going to say, all right, they're going back to new all-time highs. And then you fast forward a few months and they're just putting in new lows. So be careful drinking the hopium Kool-Aid that will be served up on these altcoin drops. There's no guarantee that they ever have to go back up to their all-time high. No guarantee of that. None. To provide you an example, we're going to go back to a simpler time in the Cryptoverse. So this is CoinMarketCap historical data snapshot. Let's go back to a simpler time. Let's go back to November 10th of 2013. How many of these coins do you guys recognize, right? Peercoin, Namecoin, NovaCoin, Feathercoin, PrimeCoin, WorldCoin, TerraCoin. Most people here have no idea what those are. Absolutely no idea. And the reason is because they're a relic from a last cycle. BBQ coin. What a time to be alive in the Cryptoverse, right? BBQ coin coming in at number 22 in August of 2013. At one point, I think it was number 11, if I remember correctly. I don't remember when it occurred, but it actually got, at one point, it got higher up on the chart. And I remember thinking, like, what the hell is this, right? Like, look at this. It's number 13 in June of 2013. Good old BBQ coin. Here it is. June 9th of 2013. BBQ coin was number 11, right? What do you think it's done since then? Yeah, not a whole lot of anything, right? Just saying, be careful with the altcoin market, because the truth is, in a few years, the coins that a lot of people are hope that'll hit new all-time highs, the next group of crypto investors that come into the space, they're not even going to know what you're talking about, right? You might say, oh, well, what about such and such altcoin back from the 2020, 2021 bull market? And they're going to look at you and be like, that's like a boomer coin. No one cares about that anymore. So I've just lived the cycle so many times. I've seen it so many times. Be aware that that is a distinct possibility. I'm not trying to say that all of them are going to go to zero. There are actually plenty of coins that dropped 98%, 95% and still put in new all-time highs, right? Hell, even Ethereum did, you know? Ethereum did as well. Look at the 2018 bear for Ethereum. From the peak here to the bottom, it dropped about 95%. I mean, on this exchange, it says it went up to 1,600. I don't remember Ethereum going up to 1,600. I remember it going up to 1,400. So you could argue, though, it dropped 94% in the 2018 bear market. 94%, 94 to 95%. And it still put in new highs the next cycle, right? Like it still managed to put in new highs next cycle. So some coins will likely recover. I want to be clear. There are a few that will likely recover. Bitcoin and Ethereum are your blue chips. It's clear as day. Bitcoin and Ethereum, those are your blue chips. The rest, you have to be very picky. And respect your money, right? Don't just throw it away on something that was shilled to you. Even if I mention a coin, be cautious about these things. Be very, very cautious for the next cycle. And as I've said, I mean, you're likely going to have some time to accumulate these things. I mean, I think everyone's always worried that the market's about to blast off without them, and so far that has not been the case, right? I mean, we have had some bear market rallies that have been brutal, even a little one right here, right? Some brutal bear market rallies to live through. But at the end of the day, they didn't really go anywhere, right? I mean, at the end of the day, nothing's really changed, It's just a way to get you to, to YOLO back in because now it's the time. One thing I would say, historically, bottoms occur around apathy, not when I have 8,000 people watching, right? So I would think that by the time the bottom actually comes in, there's a chance that there's not going to be 8,000 people watching this live stream is a likely scenario. Now, I mean, if the bottom's already in, then yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But a lot of times bottoms are formed around apathy, not around people actually calling for it. I mean, if you think back to 2018, these first capitulations woke the cryptoverse up. But after a few weeks, people are just starting to give up. And by the time the bottom was in, I mean, there weren't a lot of people calling for 3,100 to be the bottom. I'm not saying there were no people. I'm sure there were. But it wasn't a common thing that people were calling at the bottom. And I don't really think people cared. I mean, I think people were just sort of apathetic at that point, and they were just like, they were done with it. It was just like, who cares? Who cares about it? All right. I'm just checking the comment. I actually am surprised by how many people have stuck around this far. I mean, honestly, I didn't think I'd still be getting this many views at this point, to be completely honest. And I mean, to some degree, it kind of it worries me a little bit if I'm just being real with you guys, right? Like the fact that there are still this many people watching is a little it's a little concerning. Certainly would not have expected that if you had told me that by the end of the year there'd still be this many people watching. So here's the ROI after cycle peak for Bitcoin. Looks pretty similar, right? I mean, the 1-year ROI for Bitcoin right now, 0.249. Or no, yeah, hold on. Yeah, 0.249. No, not the 1-year ROI, from cycle peak is 0.249. I mean, this is the 2018 bear and this is the 2014 bear. And we're sort of right in between them right now. Okay, right in between. So history has a way of repeating itself. Someone says Matic Bitcoin is not looking that bad. We'll go take a look. So I've had these trend lines drawn for a while on Matic Bitcoin. So it looks like it's trying to hold this. Honestly, I wouldn't be that optimistic that it's going to hold, just because, as you guys are fully aware at this point, I'm just fairly pessimistic on the altcoin market until the Bitcoin bear is more definitively over. But yeah, I mean, so far it's done actually pretty well. So far it's holding this level up here. How long can it hold? I don't know if it's going to hold that much longer, but yeah, so far you're right. You know, the Matic Bitcoin pair is holding up a lot better than most, though from the high it's down about 19% or so. So it's down a lot over the last couple of days, but over the grand scheme of the bear market that really started back over here, it's only down just a little bit from where from at least from, say, like the beginning of the year. Anyways, from like the beginning of the year, the Matic Bitcoin pair is more or less unchanged. It came down a lot and then it came right back up. All right, guys, we're now at 16,900. Make sure you guys subscribe. If you're not subscribed, give the video a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 5,000 likes. The other chart that I'll just briefly pull up is this one. It's the running 1-year ROI. People have criticized this chart for a long time. As far as I can tell, it's still intact. I mean, as far as I can tell, right? I mean, you take a look at it, but the 1-year running ROI on Bitcoin right now is 0.25. 0.25. It normally gets around 0.2 before the dust settles a little bit. It's now at 0.25. The running 1-year ROI. We've been following this chart on the channel for a long time. It's playing out. You can imagine a trend line up here that connects the peaks as well. Perhaps the next peak will be in a year, 6, 7x or something. Doesn't mean it's going to be that from the bottom, but from in a year, could be like 6 or 7x or so for the next cycle. But we have to finish this first. We need to come full circle, I think, and complete the cycle. I think it's a necessary component for Bitcoin to really complete the cycle and to show that it's just coming back down to tag the same baseline that it's like Bitcoin heading home, right? It's the same thing for Ethereum, right? Like it's heading home more or less to the same area it always goes in a bear market that no one ever believes it can, but then it always does. So the 1-year running ROI on Bitcoin right now is 0.25. We're not that far away from that 0.2 level that historically has been a major area for Bitcoin. Someone in the chat says that they've become a Bitcoin maxi. I will say that the bear markets have a way of creating Bitcoin maxis. The only thing I would remind you of, and a lot of people actually accuse me of being a Bitcoin maxi. If you followed my channel long enough, you'll know that's not true. But I will say the reason it creates Bitcoin maxis is because of all the events that you're seeing take place in the rest of the Cryptoverse right now. That's why Bitcoin is usually the first to make a big move in the future, is because everyone's given up on basically everything else, and all the money just sort of piles back into Bitcoin, and it goes on another bull market. All the altcoins chase it, and then we just repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. I mean, it just plays out every damn cycle. So, yeah, I mean, bear markets make maxis. The only thing I'll remind you of is that a lot of the oversized gains in bull markets actually come from the altcoin market, not the Bitcoin market. One of the ways that I do it is a lot of times I'll be really heavy. I'll still buy altcoins near where I think their bottoms on their USD pairs are. But one way that I do it is, I like to stay pretty heavy Bitcoin, and then when it goes parabolic, then you just trade your Bitcoin in for the altcoins, because then you get to ride both waves, right? Like you ride the Bitcoin wave, and then you ride like the altcoin wave, and then you ride the Ethereum tsunami at the very end. Like remember in early 2021 when people were saying, "Oh, convert your Ethereum to altcoins because Ethereum's not going anywhere," and I was like, "No. The Ethereum tsunami is coming, right? It's coming." And then all the altcoin profits poured into Ethereum, and then it rallied up to like 4,400 or 4,200, somewhere in that ballpark. It's just the same thing, right? It's the same cycle over and over and over. Bitcoin right now is at 16,850. The current low for the bear market is 16,470. Why don't we get a read on how far that is down from the all-time high? So we'll just take a move here. 76%. So we're getting a little bit closer, right? So we know that cycle 1 was a 94% drop, right? Cycle 2 was what? 87? Cycle 3 was 84. Cycle 4 so far is 76. Remember, before it was at 74, and people were saying that that was the bottom. And I was honest that I didn't think 74% down was enough. I'm not really sure this is either, but you are starting to get closer to that point where you could at least make a more realistic case for it, right? 70, so it's gone up a couple more percent in terms of how far down it is from the all-time high. Look, it's easy to get emotional during these times. I imagine emotions are going to be running rampant over the next few weeks, but this is the time to focus. Okay, your future self will be grateful. Try and just strap in, right? Keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and focus on this cyclical behavior. Okay. Yes, we have a potential recession we have to deal with in 2023, but let's deal with that next year. Okay, let's deal with that next year and talk about the implications of what that means. In the meantime, I think we need to be focused on the more technical indicators, and then we can talk, of course, we're going to talk about the macroverse as well. I think it's important, and it could lead to Bitcoin doing some things, acting in ways that we haven't really seen it act. I think my personal conviction is that no matter what, we still likely will see a fairly nice bull market in 2024, 2025, no matter how low Bitcoin goes. That's what I think. I'm not sure exactly how high it's going to go, but I do think we'll have a bull market in the 2024 to 2025 timeframe. Not sure how low it's going to go just yet, but that's why I feel like people owe it to themselves to just try to stick around, because these things are so cyclical, right? You get peak fear, and then you get peak FOMO. And a lot of people sell into the fear and they buy into the FOMO when you need to be doing the reverse. So just keep that in mind. And in the same way, if you're a bear, if you've been a bear, I mean, I've been a bear like all year. If you've been a bear, one thing to remember, and I constantly remind myself, it's possible for bears to get euphoric as well. So if you're a bear and you're starting to feel euphoric at some point, remind yourself that greed can go in both directions, right? You can get greedy at the top. You can also get greedy at the bottom, hoping for it to go lower and lower. I mean, some people, no matter how low it goes, they'll always wait for it to go another $1,000 lower. And I'm not saying it won't go lower. I mean, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that it easily could. But remember that cherry picking bottoms is going to be very difficult. So if that's your plan, I would suggest probably coming up with a different plan, because if your goal is to just YOLO 100% into the bottom, you're likely not going to get it, because only one person in the world is likely going to hit the bottom, and it's probably not going to be you. And I sure as hell know it's not going to be me. So, keep that in mind as well. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're not subscribed. Let's get to 5,000 likes. We're currently at 4.4K. Also, check out, we have the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium. Make sure you guys check it out, intothecryptoverse.com. Do I have a strategy for real estate for the next 5 years? Yeah, so I'm actually interested in getting into the real estate market. As a millennial, I feel like I've actually been kind of like priced out of it for a long time, because I feel like inventory has just been at sky high prices that I'm not willing to overpay for. But my plan for real estate, I am not an expert, and I would bet that with 8,000 people watching, probably at least half of you know more about real estate than I do. But my plan for real estate is basically to do nothing for at least the next year, and let prices come back down because interest rates are going up, mortgage rates are going up, people can't afford this stuff. And I think as more of these newer homes get completed, builders are going to panic and they're going to try to sell at whatever price they can. The real estate market takes years to unwind. I mean, you think the crypto bear market is bad. Real estate bear markets can last like 4 years. Okay? So my plan with real estate is I don't own, I mean, I'm not like doing anything with real estate. Everything I've ever done has basically just been in stocks and crypto and a little bit in commodities. But my plan with real estate is to basically just not touch it for at least a year, probably 2 years, and then try to come in and maybe become some type of investor in the real estate market. But I'm not an expert at it, and I have a lot to learn between now and then. All right, Bitcoin's now 16,884. The dollar's at 110.6. If this ends up being a bull flag on the dollar, you could get that distribution phase. There are a lot of hills I'm willing to die on in the Cryptoverse. If the dollar does not break out into this distribution phase, it's fine. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on anyways. It hasn't stopped the crypto market from capitulating. So if the dollar doesn't break back out, it doesn't really matter to me. I still got the same results in terms of risk assets, but if it does break out, you could see some type of distribution phase on the US dollar currency index. Bitcoin's trying to get back above 17. We'll see if it has the strength to do so. Bitcoin's coming at 16.9. ADA is at 34 cents, DOT's at $6, Link's at $6.50, AVAX is at 13, Solana is at 14. I mean, Solana's down 41% on the day. Man, Matic's down 19% on the day, back to 85 cents. XRP's down 12%, 35 cents. Uniswap's down 13%, back to $5. Sometimes you just got to sit back, turn on some music, and watch things unfold, right? Someone says their fantasy scenario is making money on the next bull run and buying the housing bottom. I think that's actually not a bad idea, right? Like, I think that's not a bad idea. Now, when things seem so obvious, normally it doesn't work out the way we think. So there's a good chance whatever you're planning for, it's actually not going to work out the way you think. But if that could happen, that would not be the worst thing. Of course, the housing crash could temper returns in the Cryptoverse. Someone says they think the housing bottom will come before the next crypto bull run. You could be right. I mean, look, rates are going up faster than they've really ever gone up. I have some real estate stuff on my website too, if I can find it. I don't really look at it that much, but here it is. Mortgage rates. You know, people keep saying, you know, just date the rate and you can refinance. But look, I mean, we've had historically low interest rates. There's a good chance we're not seeing these interest rates for a long time. You could argue that these interest rates were irresponsibly low and that we're going back to whatever the normal is. So I wouldn't assume that. I mean, look, rising interest rates this quickly, it's going to have an effect. Let's look at the sale prices of houses sold. Has it had an effect yet? Let me remove the S&P. It's not even done anything yet, right? It feels like we have a long way to go. New single-family homes sold. It's starting to come down. You can see it's starting to come down here. New houses for sale over sold ratio. Look at the major peaks on it. It corresponds to bottoms in the S&P. Okay? Watch it. New houses for sale over sold ratio. Look at this right here. It peaks right here. You had the bottom just after it on the S&P. It peaked right here. The bottom came right then. A lot of these peaks correspond, or just after it, correspond to major bottoms during that recession. This is new houses for sale over sold ratio. I personally think interest rates are going to go much higher than a lot of people think, because we know, as I've shown before, and I'll show it again just in case you're new to the channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 things on this chart. We're first going to add, well, let's go ahead and add recessions. We'll have that on there. And then we're going to add US inflation. And then we're going to add the US interest rate. And then, of course, we're going to put interest rates on the same chart, or on the same y-axis as inflation. We're going to zoom in. The yellow line is interest rates. The orange line is inflation. Normally, it takes interest rates going above inflation to actually bring it back down. We're nowhere close to it right now, right? So I still think that markets are underestimating the terminal rate, because historically the terminal rate is higher than inflation. We're at half the level of inflation. Now, headline inflation has come back down some, from like 9.1 down to the low 8s. So maybe by the time we get above it, it's not quite as high. But really, to make it so that it's not so entrenched, you have to bring interest rates above inflation. We're at like half the level right now. There's no surprise that inflation has stayed high, right? There's no surprise. It would make sense that inflation has stayed high. So I think markets are still underestimating the terminal Fed funds rate. I still do think that. I mean, right now the Fed funds is at 4%, but I mean, it could easily be. I'll tell you, I mean, what the Fed should do is they should raise by 100 basis points in December. They're probably not going to do that, but that's probably what they should do. I mean, we should be at least at 4.5% by December, if not 4.75. And then you're looking at February. If we get another 50 basis point rate hike, we could be at 5.25 or even 5.5 by February. And if inflation's still not coming down, I mean, you think the Fed's just going to roll over? I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people keep telling me that, right? People keep saying the Fed's they don't mean what they say. But so far, I keep thinking they do mean what they say, and they keep doing exactly what they say. So I have no reason to doubt that they're going to continue raising interest rates until inflation comes back down, because every time they reiterate their goal is 2%. And every time we get further away from the last FOMC meeting, people start speculating on, no, they're not going to get it to 2%. They're going to change it to 3 to 4. And then Powell just comes back out the next meeting and says, no, we're actually going to go back to 2%. And that no matter the route they take, whatever route they do take, will be successful. You think he cares about our crypto portfolios? He does not. He does not. They're more concerned with getting inflation back down. Because alternatively, if they don't, which maybe a lot of people here hope they don't, but if they don't, you're probably going to see the S&P go sideways for the next 10 years if they don't. So I would prefer we just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with in 2022 and 2023. This is what I would prefer. I don't always get what I want, right? But that's what I would prefer. Rip the Band-Aid off, and then hopefully we can go through another phase of expansion. I don't really want to see us just go sideways for a long time like we did back in the 70s. So let's hope they actually have the resolve to bring interest rates back down, or bring inflation back down, by raising the interest rates high enough to actually have a meaningful impact. And I hope they don't cater to political pressure and to outside pressure. Bitcoin's currently sitting at 16,892. So still not a whole lot of movement since we've come on the live stream. But, I think we'll any other questions? I'm probably going to get going soon. If you guys aren't subscribed, again, subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Check out the sale into the Cryptoverse Premium, into the Cryptoverse.com. Also, we do have an Into the Cryptoverse Twitter account. I'm going to post it in the chat in case you guys want to follow it. Yeah, we are getting new CPI data tomorrow. So I know half of you are probably not interested in that at this point because all you care about is the crypto market, but it is an important thing that we still need to follow. And I've said before, by the time the Fed pivots to anything, most people aren't going to care anymore. You see that happening, right? I mean, a lot of people probably don't care about CPI right now. You need to follow it through, right? Follow it through. I know it's hard. We need to follow it through. Keep an eye on what's going on with the macroverse and how it can better inform risk assets as we head into 2023. One of my favorite altcoins. Again, remember, altcoin, we'll save that discussion for another time, not 2022, in my opinion. All right, should we wrap it up? I think we've gone quite a while now. Markets are not moving a whole lot at this time, so I'm not just going to go around in circles for the next hour. But we're currently sitting at just below 17K. Obviously, the market still remain under some pressure here, and we'll see how things unfold over the coming weeks. How's FTT doing? That's at $3. It's down 43% on the day. Yeah, this is not a good thing, guys. I mean, this is going to set the Cryptoverse back a while. Just like Celsius, just like Luna. These things it calls into question, right? I mean, it's going to make people question the resolve of the Cryptoverse. What if Bitcoin jumps back to 20K tomorrow? Then it jumps back to 20K tomorrow, right? Like, I mean, Bitcoin is going to do Bitcoin things. I mean, it could be all over the place for a while. It still doesn't change the fact that we've put in a new low. And so far, there's no clear sign that it has turned back around. All right, my friends, I think we'll wrap it up. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I think it's been a pretty good video. We've gone over a few things, had a few thoughts. Check out the Into the Cryptoverse Twitter. I'll post it here in the chat again if you guys want to follow it. And then also, we have a Telegram chat room. If you guys want to go in there and talk about what's going on, you can do that as well. I'll post it in the chat in case you guys want to join. There's a lot of activity over there right now, as you can imagine, if you want to join 42,000 of your closest friends. All right, guys, we will wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe.